Hi everyone, welcome to the Leadership Biz Cafe podcast. I'm your host, Tanveer Naseer, CEO of Tanveer Naseer Leadership. Looking for a keynote speaker or corporate trainer for your next event? Then visit our company's website at tanveernaseer.com to find out how we can help bring in valuable insights and practical tools to help your organization succeed in achieving its goals. And this episode is sponsored by GoCo. Connecting with your employees as a manager can be challenging. Thankfully, GoCo can help you with this by supporting your people with team feedback features built into their automation-based HR software. Not only can you make sure you're aligned with your employees on their performance, progress, and goals, but you'll show them that you care about your employees by providing them with a modern HR experience. And you can customize the GoCo platform to support your existing processes, documents, and policies. And they provide you with a dedicated customer success manager to help you maximize the benefits you derive from their platform. And the best part is you can try it for free with no credit card needed. So go to goco.io/leadership, that's goco.io/leadership, and find out why Forbes has said, as far as all-in-one HR platforms goes, GoCo is your best bet to get started. And now, let's start up the espresso machine and brew up another Leadership Espresso Shot. There's two major professional milestones that I've recently celebrated, which I wanted to use as the inspiration for this episode's topic. The first one was celebrating the 10-year anniversary of my leadership firm, Tanveer Naseer Leadership. And the other milestone was marking 10 years of writing my award-winning, internationally acclaimed leadership blog. For that achievement, I wrote a special piece on my website, a 10-year retrospective where I shared my top 10 leadership insights I wrote about on my leadership blog over the past decade. For those of you who are interested in checking that out, I'll share a link to that piece in the show notes for this episode. Of course, it's not only been a time to celebrate for my company and leadership blog, as my leadership podcast has also been the recipient of many accolades, including being featured on numerous lists of the top podcasts of 2019, including being listed as one of 23 of the best leadership podcasts you'll love, podcasts to check out if you want to be a better leader, 5 podcasts that will help you learn to lead, and 10 great leadership podcasts for managers. As such, I wanted to do something to commemorate these milestones, and given how this marks the 10th edition of my Leadership Espresso Shot series, I thought, what better way is there to celebrate these different milestones and achievements than to share with you these 3 personal lessons on how to succeed, not just in leadership, but in achieving whatever goals you set out for yourself. The first lesson I want to share is choose to be persistent, not stubborn. One question I get from people is wanting to know what measures I took to get to where I am today. While there's no process or clear series of steps I can point to, one thing that I know continues to be a key factor behind my success and attaining the accolades I've received for my work is that I'm persistent. I never let any setback or slowdown deter me from what I want to achieve. And that whatever challenges or obstacles I faced were merely opportunities for me to stretch my competencies and grow. Now, as with any long-term initiative, it's inevitable that you're going to face obstacles or unexpected twists in the road where you have to reevaluate your approach going forward. In those moments, it's easy to resist these external forces of change, insisting that you stick to what you know. It's in these moments that we can begin to appreciate the differences in being persistent instead of being stubborn. By being stubborn, we close ourselves off to new understandings, new realities, and even new opportunities. Persistence, on the other hand, allows us to be malleable to discovery and learning from these new insights, while at the same time being resilient in achieving our shared purpose. By being persistent, we're able to see obstacles and challenges as opportunities to learn and evolve, to find new avenues where we can become stronger and do a better job serving those under our care. To do that, you need to let go of this notion of working harder and instead focus on working smarter. Doing so will allow you to become a better leader to those you serve. That you don't rest on the accolades you've achieved from climbing the mountain you now stand on, but that you use this new vantage point to discover routes you can take to begin climbing the next one. The second lesson I'd like to share with you based on my experiences is develop a learning mindset to embrace failure and discover new opportunities. Given my scientific background, I'm sure it comes as no surprise that I'm a fan of experimenting to figure out how I can improve what I do. Whether that's my speaking work, what I write about on my leadership blog, or even what I do with this leadership podcast. In fact, you're listening to one of the results of those experiments right now, as this idea of these Leadership Espresso Shot episodes was something that I wanted to test to see if my listeners would enjoy them. And I'm happy to say that it's definitely been a big hit, as several of my most listened episodes of 2019, when I first started doing these episodes, include several of these Leadership Espresso Shot editions. Of course, this idea of experimentation is something we also hear about in the context of innovation, of how we can develop a new product or service offering by running various experiments or pilot projects to test the viability of these new ideas. In terms of leadership, though, what this approach also helps us with is opening up ourselves to a learning mindset, so we can be more adaptive to the changes happening within and outside our organization. We've all seen how fast-paced and interconnected the global market is compared to a decade ago, which is why we can no longer afford to rely on the assumption that what allowed us to succeed in the past will ensure our successes in the future. Here again is where you can see the benefit of a learning mindset, as it facilitates the willingness to accept failure as an opportunity for discovery and gaining new insights. This kind of mindset makes it easier to challenge your assumptions of what's feasible and what you can accomplish. As a result, you get to reconnect with that childlike curiosity we all had about the world around us, except now we can employ it to discover new ideas, new insights, and how they can be applied to the work you and your employees do. By fostering an outward-focused mindset over preserving the status quo, you can help your organization to capture opportunities you might have otherwise overlooked, and gain new insights that can help you move one step closer to achieving your shared purpose. And the third and final lesson I want to share with you on how to succeed is to make sure you honor your commitment. One of the challenges of both writing online and running a podcast as compared to giving keynotes and corporate training sessions is that you don't have the advantage of seeing your audience, of knowing when you hit publish on that latest piece or release your latest episode, how many people will show up to check out what we have to say and share. And yet, the realities of a long-running blog or podcast is that we still have to honor the commitment we make to our readers and listeners. That if they make the time to read our writings or listen to our podcast, we'll be sure to give them something to think about and hopefully inspire them on how they can be better than they are today. This, in many ways, is the flip side of persistence, where here the focus shifts away from ourselves and out towards those who we wish to engage with and empower with our ideas and message. In terms of our ability to lead, this reflects this idea I've spoken about on past episodes of my podcast, that a leader's focus shouldn't be on themselves, but on their employees and what they've committed to providing their employees to help them be successful in their efforts. But it's nonetheless something that bears repeating, as it's easy for us to look at a given situation solely from our vantage point, of thinking that because we did or said something, we gave our employees what they wanted. Indeed, this is the very premise of my book, Leadership Vertigo, namely, that a gap exists between how a leader views their leadership and how their employees experience it. Consequently, if you want to be sure that you are providing your employees with the kind of workplace environment and resources they need to successfully do their jobs, you need to evaluate your contributions and efforts not from your perspective, but from the impact it has on your employees' ability to achieve their goals. The reality is that being a leader doesn't give us the permission to be indifferent to being accountable to those we serve. On the contrary, if you want to engender a sense of trust in your leadership, if not also a culture of shared accountability in your organization, you have to honor the commitment you made when you took on the responsibility to serve those under your care. Remember, your every action and word is closely watched by those you lead to help them understand what truly matters. So if you want your employees to be fully dedicated to the shared purpose of your organization, you need to demonstrate that commitment first. As we often hear, the best leaders lead by example and not just by their words. So those are 3 personal lessons of mine on how to succeed, inspired by the efforts I've made over the past 10 years that have allowed me to achieve the successes I've attained. Now granted, these are not the only things leaders are required to do to be successful in today's fast-paced, ever-changing global environment. And that perhaps is the most important lesson every leader should learn and take hold of. That no matter how much we've learned or how many successes we've attained so far, the truth to succeeding at leadership is recognizing that it's a never-ending journey of learning and discovery. And on that note, we come to the end of this 10th edition of Leadership Espresso Shot. And that brings us to a close on this episode of Leadership Biz Cafe, brought to you by Tanveer Naseer Leadership, which, as I mentioned, has celebrated its 10th year in business. So if you're looking for a keynote speaker or corporate trainer for your next event, do visit our company's website at tanveernaseer.com to find out how we can bring these kinds of insights to your organization, either at an upcoming conference, leadership retreat, or for a corporate training event. And this episode has been sponsored by GoCo. Connecting with your employees as a manager can be challenging. Thankfully, GoCo can help with this by supporting your people with team feedback features built into their automation-based HR software. Not only can you make sure you're aligned with your employees on their performance, progress, and goals, but you'll show them that you care about your employees by providing them with a modern HR experience. And the best part is, you can try it for free with no credit card needed. So go to goco.io/leadership, that's goco.io/leadership to get started. Now, if you have any questions or comments, drop me a note through the contact form on my website. And if you enjoyed this episode, please do share it with a colleague, with your team, or with your boss to allow them to reap the benefits as well. And remember, you can find all episodes of this show as well as links to subscribe on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher Radio on our podcast page at tanveernaseer.com/LBC. So if you want to share this podcast with others, that's a great way to do it. And with that, I'm Tanveer Naseer, and you've been listening to Leadership Biz Cafe.